Electrolux Centralvacs. I'm an Electrolux fan and collector, and so that gives me kind of a soft spot for their Centralvac systems, despite their, I would say flaws, and I'll go into that later. But I have here some rough examples of sort of the evolution of these systems, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to go through that. So, in the late 1980s, Electrolux entered the central vac market with a power unit. Actually, they had one that was even earlier than this that I think was a private label of a Canadian brand, but this was the first model that they built themselves, the 1590. This will be an early 1990s machine. It is all metal construction. They only ever made one model of central vac, single motor, and they've changed through the years in styling and motor specs and little things here and there, but you can see it's the same basic thing. And they always said, well, this machine is rated for up to 6,000 square feet. If you got more than 6,000 square feet, you put in more than one. So that's that. So inside these units is a foam filter. These are bagless. And let's see, let's take this one apart. This one will be later. This is from like the early 2000s, and I'll go into the name change, the reason that Electrolux had to become Aerus. But you can see it's pretty much the same thing. When this is mounted on the wall, obviously the bucket comes off, but sitting on the floor, we take the top off. And now you can see there is the bucket where the dirt goes. There is a separator cone, which incorporates the gasket to seal one part to the other part. And then this, which would be, mounted upside down on your wall. This is where the dirt comes in, swirls around, most of it drops down, the lighter stuff goes and is trapped by this filter here. And so to get this out, I'm going to give this a turn and then remove this big old foam filter. And on the earlier machines, this was like a smaller beige type material. And then for a short time, they were actually using a cartridge filter. But today, the replacement filter for any central vac that looks like one of these is this blue foam thing. And once a year, twice a year, or quarterly, you'll have to establish your own interval. You want to take this out and either vacuum it off carefully with another vacuum or wash it and let it dry thoroughly, completely dry, before it gets reinserted in the machine. So really the way to do this is to have two filters, one in the unit and one that you've washed and dried and is waiting for you to switch them out. Another thing I'll note, which I touched on in another short video, some of these models do have a safety switch that prevents the machine from operating when there's no filter in place. That's a good feature. But what we've run into is we've all experienced foam things kind of falling apart with age and becoming, just kind of starting to disintegrate. And when this foam filter gets a little bit long in the tooth, then instead of the foam pressing down on the switch will press into the foam just like it has here. And so you can have a filter in your machine and the machine won't turn on. And so the first thing that you would check is just to reposition the filter, or probably get yourself a new filter, and make sure you hear that click tells you that switch is actuating. And we're just gonna, you see how that pushes down all the way? So that's good. That's how you want it to look. And then we can put our bucket back on. Which is difficult one-handed, as you might imagine. Okay, and latches. All right, so that's inside the Centralux unit. That's basically the only maintenance on it. Yours may have a little hat muffler thing. That's to make it a little bit quieter. None of these are really quiet machines, but that muffler helps. And also having a muffler on the exhaust helps quite a bit. This is the exhaust. This is where the air comes out. This should have a muffler on it, and it should probably also be vented to the outside. These units having only a single layer of filtration, there is some potential for some dust to pass through the exhaust, as you can see has been happening on this one. So outside exhaust, a good thing. Muffler, also a good thing. Going on to the accessory sets. So one of the things I like about these systems was that they adapted the tools from their canister vacuum cleaners. And Electrolux canisters, starting from the very beginning, always were tip top, and they did a lot of development into very functional, durable tools. And so when they got into the central vac business, they gave you the same tools. They just made that 6-foot hose 30 feet long. And this pistol grip, I always find this very comfortable to use. This would have been used until like the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And I like this very much. What I don't like is the hose. This is what's called a wire reinforced hose. You can't kink it. And this would appear to be a very durable, high quality hose material, and it is. But first of all, it'll chew up your corners, something awful. Lots of people have hose socks on like this or like that. But second of all, it is tremendously restrictive to the airflow of the system. And this is not just Electrolux. Other brands used these materials, but Electrolux used it for much longer, and they continue to use it today. So like if I take a good powerful central vac and I plug an inefficient hose in, that's going to rob so much of the suction power, and at the end of the hose, it's probably going to feel kind of wimpy. So that's my beef with the Electrolux hoses. Their tools are wonderful. This is a great power head, does a nice job. They always had a geared belt on their power heads so the belt won't stretch and slip with wear. So that's a great feature. We've got the flip over dusting and upholstery tool. So you stick it on the hose this way and you can do your dusting. It's one of the most underutilized features of any canister or central vac, the ability to go around and dust your windowsills and your lampshades and your tabletops and cold air return vents and all sorts of stuff. But the Electrolux tool could be used also as a furniture nozzle by putting it on backwards. And these wings even adjust, so like if you wanted to clean along the arm of a chair or like the front part of a stair tread, get like a little bit of the tread and a little bit of the riser, that's how you would do it. So nice tool. And same thing with their, so this is a design that was around since before the power nozzle even existed. This is their combination rug and floor tool. And this is actually a little bit older version that has a metal elbow. So most of the time what you'll see is this, but with a plastic elbow in here. But same idea. This is used for the bare floors, but if you have to vacuum rugs, then you take this out, you flip it around, you plug it back in, and now you can see that, whoops. Now you can see the suction opening is on this rug side, which has these little serrations in it. It has this, what's called a gleaner bar that has a little bit of a, it's like knurled almost. And this, for being a non-agitating rug tool, this does a pretty darn good job. Like, unless you've got all kinds of pet hair, you could get your rugs clean with this. And I like this tool. They also came out with a mini power nozzle, which they always called the Sidekick. And this has a rotating brush in it. It is geared belt driven. It has its own little electric motor in it. And that connects also to the hose handle, like that. So nice set of tools. In like 1990, I don't know, 3, 4, something like that, Electrolux came out with the new style handle and wand setup. So instead of the handle looking like this and being very comfortable and nice to hold and, you know, compact and functional, you got this, which I call the rhinoceros snout. And I guess they were trying to update it, modernize it. They did give the hose a 3-position switch, which is nice. There is no switch on a genuine Electrolux pistol grip hose. But this kind does have the ability to turn the vacuum system off and on, as well as the power nozzle. Not only did I find this very cumbersome for vacuuming anything besides just attached to the wands doing the carpet, it also had a tendency for these little latches to break. Now these parts are all replaceable. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was a deal. Going along with this, your wands were these kind of big plastic things with the pins. The electrical connections are all integrated. They wanted to make it smooth and sleek and very 90s looking. And so those fit together like this. You would normally have two wands and plug them into a power nozzle like that. Again, a little taller with two. Or you would have your same flip over combination rug and floor tool, which you could plug in. The other thing I've noticed about this setup was, so the wand and the handle height was made based off of this height. But if you take this off, right, and you put your floor brush on, see how much shorter that is? So now you vacuum like a hunchback, unless you're, well, not tall. I'm not 6 feet tall, and yet it's not quite very comfortable for me even to use this. Just because I wish they had made this elbow a little bit taller. I think they actually did at one point. At some point they started to make it taller, but you still get the side kick, you still get the flip over combination dusting and upholstery tool. And through the years, as their power units changed like colors and styling upgrades, they did change the colors on the hoses and tools, and the latest ones are actually black. So the units still look like this, but the hoses and power heads and tools are all black. Electrolux did get right on board early on with dual voltage direct connect wall inlets, and they actually had their name imprinted in them, which I think is really cool. Like, I could, maybe not in ivory, but I could see having these in my house. It says Electrolux, and one of their advertising things was put an Electrolux in every room, which is pretty neat. They had a version of this inlet that had a power receptacle right here, and the purpose of that was to eliminate having to plug in a cord separately. This is what feeds the power to run this or this. But this is called the Centralux hose. This is they collaborated with Hayden in Canada. So if you take this off, take the screws out, spin this bit around so that the pins are facing this way. Now when you connect this to this, can I have a tripod for my birthday? You can imagine these pins going into a receptacle that's built into the wall connection. Very convenient. So that was a nice thing that they started to do. And these hoses always fit the square door super valves very nicely. You can see it's just made to fit right in there. Electrolux became a proponent of 35-foot hoses as standard, and normally the standard is 30 feet, and 35 is an option if your rooms are really huge, or if you couldn't get the wall inlets in good places to cover, like you needed just an extra few feet to reach the back corner of the closet in your bedroom or something. 35-foot hoses can come in handy, but 35 feet of wire reinforced heavy central vac hose kind of makes the system just that much more cumbersome, and I gotta say, like, I am the #1 central vac nut in the world. If my first experience with central vac was a 35-foot wire reinforced hose and a power head and all the tools, I don't know, like, it's a lot. And especially if that hose is also choking off a lot of the airflow. So if you've got one of these and you've always found this cumbersome, I don't blame you. And you can actually fit a modern hose set like our Complete 360 kit It replaces the hose with a much lighter, more efficient one. It replaces all your tools, plugs right in. It would be a night and day upgrade to your system. So I would consider that strongly. That's worth every penny. You can keep the old hose for the basement or something. Electrolux had kind of an identity crisis because the brand that they spent decades building a wonderful, priceless reputation for, at some point, they licensed the Electrolux brand from Electrolux of Sweden, which was always a different company, and then their lease ended or they sold the rights or something. So around 2004 ish, they stopped, this company, Electrolux Corporation, stopped being able to call themselves Electrolux. It's kind of like the original McDonald's brothers couldn't call their restaurant McDonald's anymore because they had sold the franchise and the company. Well, same idea. So since then, this central vac is called an Aerus, and you can see they have suggestions of the name Electrolux, like Centralux or just Lux. And since then, if you see a vacuum that has the name Electrolux on it, it is not the same thing. This has basically nothing to do with these. I mean, they're distant cousins. This I would call a fake Electrolux. And this is an Electrolux of Sweden / Beam / Eureka product. And it's also a piece of garbage, in my humble opinion. And the hose set I have here is labeled Beam, but the one that came with this system would have been this exact setup, but that said Electrolux on it. Now this has its own pros and cons. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. These units are basically unrepairable nowadays. Some of them we can still get motors and boards and stuff for, just not this. The hose, even though it is a better... So this is the nicer, newer material. It's much lighter, and it's called crush proof. It means you can crush it, but it comes back. If you take this and it gets crushed, like run over by a car tire or stuck in a door jamb or something, it stays crushed. It stays flattened out. So this is better. It's more durable. The handle, they had some nice ideas, but there's a lot of durability issues that I have run into servicing this product. And so that's a topic for a different video. But I just wanted to circle back to this as, yes, it's called an Electrolux. No, it's really nothing to do with this. And these are the subject of our video. So even an old central vac can often outclean a new portable vacuum, and it's certainly better than not having a central vac at all. The machines can all be serviced and upgraded. We can keep these systems running, so even after 30 plus years, these can all be a valuable part of your home cleaning arsenal. We are here to help you with that. Give us a call or visit our website. Our contact information is below. As always, thank you for watching. Happy vacuuming.